Welcome to this month's Family Business Webinar presented by the First Bank Center for Family-Owned Businesses. My name is Ed Hart, and along with the entire First Bank team, we thank you for taking the time to be with us today for this important topic that we'll be discussing. The topic today addresses something that I think has been on the mind of family businesses for generations, and that really is, what type of policy should we have in place for making sure that our next generation gets the experience, the education, and so forth that they need so they can come back and effectively lead and run our own family businesses. I'll introduce our speakers momentarily, but first I invite you to just take a moment to watch this video from our chairman, Mr. Michael Dierberg, and then we'll come right back.
Family business is so much more than just business as usual. It takes an entirely different mindset, a different vision. You know a bright future is found in strong traditions. You see the freedom in looking further down the road. As part of the fourth generation of my family to help lead First Bank, I know we share your vision. That's why we've created the First Bank Center for Family-Owned Businesses to share our experience with monthly webinars, tailored products, tools, and education specific to family-owned businesses. Your vision is our vision. Let our experience be yours. Let's see what your future can be.
As Michael mentioned, our focus at First Bank and the Center for Family-Owned Businesses is 100% focused on you, the family business owner. How can we use our experience and leverage our experience and connections to help you and your family business to be more successful? We invite you to reach out to us through our website at www.first.bank/family business to learn more about all the different events, podcasts, and webinars and research and articles and surveys and so forth that we are providing for you, the family business owner, through the Center for Family-Owned Business. So as I mentioned before the video, many family business leaders, themselves included, I'm sure, struggle with the idea of should they require their next generation to go out and get outside experience, go get an education, or should they require them to stay in the business and learn the ropes of the company and the industry and the people and so forth as well. Our presenters today, Dr. Carol Wittmeyer and Dr. Isabel Botero, are good friends of mine that I met through my work in family business in the academic world. And I'm excited for all of you to meet them today to talk further about this topic of, again, should you require outside experience for your next generation? I'm going to read just a little bit of a bio about each of them, and then we'll turn it over to Carol and Isa here momentarily. So Carol Wittmeyer, Dr. Carol Wittmeyer is the interim dean of the School of Business at St. John Fisher University, where she has led the Family Business Initiative. She is a Smith Family Business Fellow at Cornell University and a faculty member at Loyola University Chicago's Family Business Center. She's a professor emerita at St. Bonaventure University as well. Carol has worked in public accounting and served as president of a family foundation, and she and her family own and lead 3 businesses, so they have a lot of experience in family business. Dr. Isabel Botero is a faculty member at the Department of Management and Entrepreneurship at the University of Louisville, an advisor at Generation 6 Family Enterprise Advisors, and co-founder and contributor to Family Business Strong. She is a fellow for the Family Firm Institute, holds an advanced certificate in family wealth advising, and is a certified exit planning advisor as well. Please join me today in welcoming my dear friends, Dr. Carol Wittmeyer and Dr. Isabel Botero, for today's First Bank Center for Family-Owned Business webinar. Carol and Isa, it's just an absolute pleasure to see you both. Thank you for taking the time to share your experience and research and wisdom with our First Bank audience here today.
Well, thank you, Ed, and thanks to First Bank. We really appreciate this opportunity to share our research. We admire what you and the bank have been doing. Ed, it's been a long, wonderful career working by your side across the country, but trying to serve families who are making really difficult decisions with very significant trade-offs.
It's a pleasure. It's been great working with you, Carol. And Isa, it's nice. I know we don't go back as far as Carol and I do, but I got to see you give this presentation at FFI last year in Boston. And I knew that day I was excited to have the two of you present this to our broader audience. So thank you again for joining us.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and we really hope that this research that we're doing can also help a lot of business owning families, because that's really our goal, to make sure that we give elements and kind of tools to families so that they can make the best decisions for them.
Well, great. Thank you. Well, with that, I will ask our producer, Brian, off camera to take me off and leave it to the two of you. And then I'll come back at the end and go through some questions that no doubt have already come in as people have received the information that we sent out in that PDF. And by the way, if you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a PDF that Carol and Isa and their team put together that really outlines the research that they've done that they're talking about today. So if you haven't received that already, you can send an email to me at ed.hart@fbol.com, and we'll make sure we get that out to you today. But with that, I'll go off and we'll turn it over to Carol and Isa for this wonderful presentation.
So I'm Carol Wittmeyer from St. John Fisher, as Ed mentioned, here with my wonderful colleague Isa to talk about this project we're very passionate about, really the first research done on the topic of should they stay or go, rethinking how to prepare the next generation of family leaders. I'm reaching out to you from upstate New York. Our beautiful campus is located in Rochester. You can see our building that someone from a family business, Vic Salerno, supported. And we're also famous in upstate New York because the Bills, another family business, have their camp here. Super fun. And during the last camp, last August, we actually ran, I think, one of the nation's first young adult / parent camp for in conjunction with the Bills camp for families in business. It was super, super fun. And I'll let Isa say a few words about her campus.
I'm located in Louisville, Kentucky, the land of bourbon and horses. I come from our College of Business, and we are very excited to be able to participate with Carol on this project.
Thank you. So before we get started, for all of you who are listening, I just wanted to give some general stats that whenever we do these presentations, we ask families at this point to talk about, do they require outside experience to get the wheels turning? And as many as 93% of participants have said that they do. So it's in a broad range of webinars and surveys that we've done. I would say the vast majority consistently say that. So we're going to ask you to think about that today. And before we launch into all the background, I do want to make one overarching comment that Isa already mentioned and Ed too, and that is what we're going to talk about today, starting with this first family that I'll tell you about, is that each family's different, and the approach we're taking in this research project is very mindful of that strategy and of that thinking that what may work for one might need to be a little bit modified for another. So just want to be really clear about how sensitive we are that each family is different. So thank you. So how did it start? Well, if you're in upstate New York or if you've been in Canada, you're familiar with Tim Hortons, a cult-like cafe and bake shop, as you see here, a franchise, very good coffee and some food to go with it. And so I was teaching one day several years ago, and one of my students who's in this is a picture of Blake Tarana's family business, and they're holding up a sign for some reason, some fundraiser. They're very philanthropic, like most of your family businesses. They're very involved, like all of your family businesses. They're very involved in their community charities. So Blake, the second to the right, was waiting for me outside my office for academic advising, something that college students need to do, obviously, to think about the next semester. At that point, he had already experienced a very difficult challenge in his career. He was a junior at that point, but when he was in high school, his older brother, and he had a nice argument, a nice fun back and forth about who was going to run the family business. His older brother, Jesse, said that he was going to, because he already had more years in, inherently he was older than Blake. And also, unlike Blake, he did not take time to go to college. So he thought he was going to be in charge because he'd had more experience and time with the parents running this business, etc. And Blake said, no, I'm gonna be your boss because I'm gonna go to college and I'm gonna get my degree, and that will add a lot of value, and I'm gonna continue working every second I can. So it was a fun back and forth until when Blake was a senior in high school, Jesse went off to work at 4 a.m. early, Tim Hortons, and unfortunately got into an accident and he died. And that was a very difficult thing. We talk in family business all the time about the founder, the now gen, what happens if something happens immediately to them. But we don't typically talk about that for the next gen. And I hope that gives you a little bit of pause for thought as well. So Blake it was difficult for him many years with that in the background. So I enjoyed and the privilege, and I will say true privilege, of working with him and all of my students. So he's waiting for advising this one day. And my colleague, who I love, Dr. Todd Palmer, who's a lawyer and a PhD in management, very well regarded, very smart. I can hear him talking in the hall. I'm still with the student, I'm behind. I can hear him telling Blake, you need to go get outside experience, like if you really want to learn how to run this business. And Blake said, no, I don't. Blake was always very assertive. No, I don't. And I'm not going to. And as a matter of fact, I guess I am, because I'm working for the Tim Hortons down the street that somebody else owns, and I'm learning how to do everything, how to fix everything there. So they were laughing back and forth. So Blake came in, we went over his courses, and he left. And at the end of the day, I went into Todd's office and I said, Todd, I heard you telling our student to go get experience elsewhere. Can you help me understand that? What he's doing now is part of his family's plan for him to take over these businesses. And he said, Carol, it's just, it gives them credibility. Like doesn't everybody do this? Why aren't we telling everyone this? So after that conversation, I did what I always do when I use this advice. It works very well. But I try to think about, I have a really important question and I don't know the answer to it. And who's the smartest person I know to ask to help give me some answers or where to go to start the research? And that led me to reaching out to a longtime favorite colleague, Joe Astrachan, who's on the right next to my picture here. Joe is a fellow at Cornell, and he also is a professor emeritus at Kennesaw State, where he led the Cox Family Business Center there. He's internationally regarded as a family business research leader. So he told me there wasn't an answer, there wasn't any research, and let's get to work on it. So we decided to do that. And we worked to get together an interview protocol, and we worked to get together with other centers from around the nation who would help us put together families that would participate. And we'll talk about what that profile looked like in a minute. Along the way, we absolutely needed more manpower, woman power, I should say, in terms of intellectual capital, in terms of grit, in terms of execution, in terms of family business expertise. We could see that this project had so many opportunities. So that's where we got a hold of Isa, and she brought in her grad student, doctoral student, Juliana. And I can honestly say this project would not have come to fruition without their help. So I'm profoundly grateful and that she's on with us today. And now she's going to tell us a little bit more about the details of the research project. So thank you for letting me share that. And Isa, take it away.
So in this project, we were kind of very interested in trying to understand the next generation and the experiences that next generations have as they join their family business, and when is it good, and kind of what are the risks and the benefits that comes with it. So we had like 3 research questions that we started with. So the first one was, we were interested in understanding a little bit more about what was outside experience and the type of experiences that others counted as external to the organization. Because one of the things that we notice is that a lot of our kind of participants in the survey, what happens is that they go and work for an organization that it's like maybe their parents' friend is the owner of it, and then that's how they end up in that organization. So we wanted to understand a little bit more about what that experience looked like. We also wanted to understand what were the benefits of working inside or outside of the family business, because by understanding that, then we would be able to provide family business owners with tools so that they can understand under what conditions are good in these instances, and maybe which ones are maybe downfalls. We also wanted to understand some of the costs, because with every benefit, there's a cost. And then one of the things that we also wanted to do was we wanted to make sure that all the participants in our study had a kind of variance in the way that in their experiences, so that it can enrich our understanding of the preparation of next generation members. One of the things that we do know from research, as you can see, like EY has been doing research about next generation members for a very long time. And in a recent survey that they had, they asked how many people did they like. So how long did their family members require kind of their next generation to work outside of the family business? And if you can see, it is over 75% require the next generation to work between 2 to 5 years outside of the family business. And our question, kind of from a research point of view, was why would you require kind of the next generation to work outside of the business? What is the evidence that we have that can kind of show us that by doing this, we're doing actually a good thing for the next generation and for the family business? So that's kind of, in a way, how our project started. As Carol said, we were interested in, like, one of the things that happens very often to people who work in family business, who work or who consult with family business, that you often get two questions. One is, what can I do to prepare the next generation? Or the next generation can come to you and ask you, what can I do so I can succeed in as a next generation in the family business? So we wanted to know whether outside experience kind of really did the trick in this sense. So what we did is we collected data with 11 different firms. We had a total of 37 interviews. And for us to kind of recruit a team or a family firm to participate in our project, we had several kind of requirements. Number one, we wanted to be from throughout the United States. So we collected data with 6 family business centers that helped us in this process: Cornell, the Loyola in Chicago, and several others that kind of were very kind and connected us with several families in their centers. We needed organizations or families that had 3 or more generations that they have been doing business, because we wanted to ensure that they had at least gone through one succession and they had kind of some experience in the process. We wanted to make sure that the CEO was a family member, because at the end, the purpose is to have a next generation member that is going to be managing the firm. And we also interviewed the CEO and 2 additional people, the next generation and then a family employee. I'm sorry, a family employee and a non-family executive. Because we wanted to make sure that we could triangulate and get information from a lot of different points of view. So one of the interesting things about our sample is that that the non-family had very strong preferences for the next generation to work outside. And a lot of times the decision to send somebody out to work was guided by suggestions of non-family individuals. So during our interviews, one of the things that we wanted to do was to really understand the experiences that people had outside of the family business and inside the family business, and to also kind of highlight what were the aspects of those experiences that helped them succeed in the family business and support the continuity of this business. So that's how we started our project, and these were the type of resources kind of that we collected data from. In general, once we kind of conducted the interviews, we coded all of the interviews, and it was coded by 2 of us, so that we can ensure that kind of it was not only the perception of one of the people who were looking at the data. But let me tell you a little bit more about kind of what we are going to focus on this presentation. Although there's many aspects that we discovered throughout our process, one of the things that we were primarily focused on was I'm trying to answer the idea whether working outside was good or not. So our research question that guided kind of the way that we looked at the data was trying to understand Why would working outside the family business make a next generation more successful? And by successful, we mean that the next generation is able to help with the continuity of the business. So let me tell you a little bit about what we found, and then we'll stop and ask for some questions from the audience. The first thing is that like any experience, we found that both internal and external experience have good and bad things. So let's start by outlining what are the benefits of working outside. The first benefit, and it not to the surprise of anybody, was that when we work outside of our family businesses, we tend to get a lot of really important general business capabilities, because by exposing ourselves to the way that other people do business, then we're able to enhance our own capabilities and our own knowledge about business. The second aspect that we discovered that was very good, or a benefit in this case, was that when we learned to, or when we started working outside, we learned to be more autonomous, because it was us who was making the decision and not other people around us. It also gave us the opportunity, or it also gave the next generation the opportunity to kind of make their own decisions and live under their own terms in that sense. They were also able to better understand their career and understand what aspects of their career they liked and what aspects they didn't like. And that this was kind of very powerful for the next generation, because it enabled them to make their own decisions. They also were able to have a stronger social network, because by working outside of the family business, they had the opportunity to kind of intermingle with different networks that they maybe were not directly exposed to. And this was very enriching, because if they needed some extra knowledge, they knew who they could contact to gain that knowledge. And another aspect that was very important is that people who work outside of the business come with a different point of view. And by having this different point of view, they're able to kind of look at the organization from kind of a different lens, and to kind of take a devil's advocate type of role. With benefits, there are also risks for anything that we do. So one of the aspects that we found is that, obviously, when the next generation works outside of the business, we also have several risks that we're going to face. The first one that we found was that when we work outside of the family businesses, there tends to be less opportunity for the next generation to learn about the family business, which can be damaging, because we do know from research that knowing the family business is important to be successful as a next generation member. Additionally, when a next generation works outside of the family, they tend to have new and different expectations when they join the family business. Like if they return to the family business, they're going to have very different expectations of what they want and how do they expect to engage with the family business. We also saw that when the next generation worked outside of the family business, they found new opportunities, and sometimes they didn't know they were looking for different opportunities or these opportunities, which makes us think that, especially in an environment like the one today, it might be difficult to have the next generation come and join the family business, because they found these new opportunities that they didn't know whether they liked or not, and they end up liking them very much. Another aspect that we found as a risk from our data was that when the next generation works outside of the business, it's very difficult for them to understand clearly what their role is going to be when they come back and join their organization. Because when they go outside, they tend to do a lot of different activities that sometimes might not be applicable to the type of activities that they would have when they come and join the organization. At the same time, we also found that there's a lot of benefits that can come from working inside of the family business. One of those benefits is that we get to learn, or the next generation gets to learn a lot about the family business, which gives them the opportunity to really understand how the family business works and kind of, if they need something, who is the person inside of the family business that will be able to help them. They're also able to learn a lot more about what we call tacit knowledge, which is kind of this knowledge that is not kind of written anywhere, but it's embedded in the minds of the individuals that work inside of the family business. By working inside, the next generation is able to create connections with people who know, and they get to learn from their experiences too. They also get to learn a lot more about the culture of the family business and the values that the family business has. And because of this, then it becomes easier for them to be more consistent with the type of values in the way that they make the decisions throughout generations. One of the things that at least I believe it's a great benefit from working inside of the family business is that it allows the next generation to build credibility and legitimacy inside of the business with the employees and with the all of the other stakeholders inside of the organization. This is very important because it really helps them with the next point, which is the idea of self-efficacy, which means the belief that I can do things in ways that are, that I have enough knowledge and skills so that I can be successful at what I want to do. And I think that building this credibility is very important inside of the business, is inside of the family business. And finally, it also enables you, or enables the next generation to develop a strong family connection, which will be very useful as they work throughout the family business. With anything, there's also risks. And so when you work inside of the family business, there's several risks that the next generation can also have. The first is that they might develop very unique and specific type of knowledge. And if they're working in an industry in which they need a wide set of knowledge, maybe learning only very specific knowledge might not be very useful for the next generation. It also makes your social network smaller because you tend to kind of connect with the people who are closest to you and with the people that you interact more often. And if these people are only inside of the family business, then your network becomes a little bit more, let's say, restricted. Additionally, it makes it more difficult to engage in self-development because kind of all the people around you know you, and a lot of the times maybe they don't allow you to grow, or they don't allow you to kind of make the mistakes that you need to make as part of your development, because you are the next generation inside of the business and people want to protect you. So kind of that can be a risk. It also, when you work inside of the family business, it also limits the type of perspectives that you're also able to manage at the same time. So because the people that you work with are very similar to who you are, and kind of you just get used to working with a similar type of people, then you might not be able to see different perspectives. And sometimes having different perspectives is going to be important. And because of this, you're going to have a much more limited point of view when you think about kind of the process of working in a family business. So what we wanted, kind of one of the conclusions that we found from this project is that, one, is that not only kind of working outside the family business has benefits and risks, but also working inside of the family business has benefits and risks. So if you want to kind of enhance your capabilities, then what can you do? One of the things that kind of a second aspect that we explored within our data was, what would be the competencies that the next generation would need so that they can be successful at their role? A competency, just for those of you who are not used to this type of vocabulary, is the set of knowledge, skills, abilities, and any other behavioral characteristics that are going to help us achieve a better performance in anything that we do. In our case, we focus exclusively in the next generation, in being a next generation for a family business. So we found out through our interviews that there's at least 4 different competencies that we need so we can succeed as next generation members. The first one is business competencies. And business competencies is anything that I need to do so that I can work inside of the business and manage the business. This includes knowledge about finance, about accounting, about human resources, about marketing. So all of these competencies are included within the business competency. The second type of competencies that are relevant for the success of the next generation are what we label family competencies. These are any task or social knowledge, skills, capabilities that you need so you can be successful. And in the family side is learning, for example, how to interact with family members, how to kind of engage them in what you're doing, and issues like this. A third set of competencies were ownership competencies. And ownership competencies are things that are related to being a responsible owner inside of a family business. So what are your responsibilities if you own stocks in a company, or what are your kind of rights when you are a stock owner inside of a family business? All of these were key issues that we needed to kind of discuss that are relevant for next generation so they can be successful. And finally, personal competencies. And personal competencies are related to kind of your leadership abilities, the way that you manage conflict, your understanding of your strengths and weaknesses. And all of these kind of were really kind of are very important so that you can develop professionally in any area. So from our research, we found also that when you work outside of the business, you tend to develop more business and personal competencies. However, when you work inside of the family business, you tend to enhance both your family and your ownership competencies. And I think that this is key, because if at the end we want a kind of a well-rounded next generation member, we need one that has developed all of these competencies together. So at the beginning of our question was kind of, does working outside really make you a much more competent next generation member? Because that's the essence of our idea. What we found out is that to be a successful next generation member, we need to have 4 competencies. But then how do we build those competencies? Is it just working outside that we build those competencies? Our answer is no. To develop those competencies, we can achieve this in a lot of different ways. Here are some. We can achieve it through the parenting. So the way that our parents educate us and the way that they present to us new opportunities, that helps us build some of these competencies. You can also think about the family routines, like, do we have dinner together? Do we learn in these dinner experiences, or do we have family outings to the business? Some of these things also help us be more competent in what we do. The education programs that we complete as part of our preparation also plays a key role in developing these competencies. Also, the work experience that we have. This work experience can come from inside of the family business or from outside of the family business. We can also have mentoring, and we can also have networks that also help us learn about a lot of different things. And one thing that some of them also mentioned was, if you have a coach that also helps you kind of develop your personal style or can guide you through some of your decisions, these are also some of the ways that we can learn about these competencies. So then the next question for us is, okay, if working outside of the family business is not kind of the only answer to prepare your next generation, then what are things that family businesses and current generation members should think about so that they can prepare the next generation well? The first thing that we think you should think about is, what are the skills that your next generation needs so they can thrive in your organization? Because if you understand kind of this sort of skills and knowledge and ability, then you can ask the second question, which is, what skills does your current generation have? And then you can assess whether kind of what is it that they're missing, what is it that they need to develop, so then you can start kind of being more proactive about the type of planning that you want to do for the development of the next generation. Once you understand kind of what the next generation needs to learn, then you can also ask yourself is, how can they learn these skills? Is it necessary for them to work outside of the family business or not? Can they work inside of the business, and maybe you can offer different alternatives so that they can kind of continue to enhance these capabilities? Because if that is the case, then that might be a really good way for you to think about this process. Additionally, you need to think about the idea that if you, whatever is it that you do, whether you ask your next generation to work outside or inside of the business, are you assessing what they're learning, how they're learning, and kind of those skills that you think that they need to develop so that they can be successful at your kind of in your family business? Because if you're not assessing, it's going to be difficult for you to understand kind of when are they ready, or what is it the next step of this preparation process. And then finally, also make sure that when you're developing the next generation, you also provide them with assistance. That means that if they get stuck, or when they get stuck in their process, maybe you can offer them a way and outside help so they can become better at what they're doing and they can succeed as part of your next generation. So now let's open it for Q&A, and I'm going to invite Carol and Ed back.
Thank you, Isa. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Great, making sure. So first of all, Isa, I said a little prayer for your voice about halfway through. I know you're struggling with a lot of the travel and everything, so glad that feels like that might have been answered, and I appreciate you battling through. So the content that you both have presented today is really valuable. I took a lot of notes and a few questions, as I mentioned before, when we did this at another time, and also reading through some of the information that we've sent out. A couple of questions that have come up. One is just, one person asked me, it almost feels like it's too late. We sent our daughter off to work in another company. She's been out there now for 6 to 8 years. Our plan was to eventually have her come back and lead the company, but she's not really showing an inclination to do so. Any advice in that situation? I know that's more applicable than just that one family that asked, but any thoughts on that? Not how do you persuade them to come back necessarily, but in that situation, what suggestions or advice have you seen and would you give?
Carol, how about you?
Thank you. Well, it's a great question that families wrestle with, and I know, Ed, we've talked about nearby us is Perry's Ice Cream, 4th generation company, well known, and they share all their governance documents with everyone, including this requirement. And the two daughters, who are in their late 20s, went off to Charlotte together, and they're having a hell of a good time. And now there's no succession plan. It's not clear. It's not clear. They're working on it. So I think one of the things that they're talking about is obviously more family meetings, making sure that they're putting together a plan to make sure that these young ladies are more tied into what's happening in the business. Isa talked earlier about, the ownership competency, but, really understanding about what it looks like for their future in terms of all the different competencies, what the opportunities are. So I would say involving them in all of those kinds of opportunities. And if those opportunities don't exist, it's time to have those family meetings to talk to them and others who are involved in the business as well, obviously. And I think the other thing is, some meeting, a meeting with the next gen to say, what are you interested in? What opportunities, mean the most to you? Where do you see yourself going? And how do we make sure that we're providing opportunities and training and resources for you, to be involved at the level that makes the most sense, from family employee to and/or owner, shareholder, so that we're including them as much as possible, even though they're working somewhere else. Isa, what would you add to that? Oh, I'm sorry. Also having them involved in family business educational programs, so they're talking to people like them. I'm sorry, Isa, what would you add?
I think that one of the things that I found when I interact with family businesses is that a lot of the times that they think that because they're family, there's the assumption that the next generation should know that I'm interested, that they would return to work for the family business.
Yeah.
And I think that Carol brings up a good point. A lot of people forget to talk about this and to interact with one another and say, okay, what is it that you want to do? How is it that you want to join us? How do you want to engage in this? Because even if they have worked outside of the business for 8 years, they might be interested. They just don't know how to approach this, and they never have thought about it because kind of there's no implicit communication of either side. So I think that it's one of the important things is to kind of be open and explicit about it. Because as a now generation, you might be kind of assigning some belief to what the next generation is thinking, and the next generation might be doing the same thing to the current generation. So I say always talk. Mm-hmm. That's the most important thing. And then if not, figure out there's many ways to be involved as a next generation. Right. I don't have to only work in the business. I can be an owner. I can bring ideas. I can do all of these things. So if I'm not involved in one way, maybe I can have avenues for my involvement in a different way. So just think about that. Kind of, how do you want to be involved and facilitate that process?
And Ed, one other thing that you've seen for sure, and I know you have opinions about this, which would be fun to hear too, but relatedly, do we have other policies that prohibit them or aren't, that cause barriers? For example, a number of families, believe the best practice and the policy is that for the next gens to come in, or any family member, there has to be an opening and the person has to be qualified. So that rules out all kinds of next gens, period. So I think thinking through that, the rationale for that decision and other models, and Isa could talk about this too, but other models of bringing them in, it makes sense. So there's other things that they need to think about that could be limiting the next gens even thinking they could come in.
Yeah, and I've seen policies too where, some companies that I've met, and some of them as well, where family members can't report to family members, or they have to go get experience out of an industry or within the industry. And then also maybe they limit the number of family members. McElhenney Company comes to mind. Tony Simmons spoke out here at a Hall of Fame event we did in Southern California several years ago. And he was sharing that at Tabasco, their company, no more than 3 family members can be in a leadership role at any given time. They try to really make sure that they're grooming non-family members. And then others have generation skipping policies. The CEO can't be father to son to grandson. It can be father to grandson, but, a lot of different policies there in mind. Question for you that also has come up, and Isa, it sounded like you might have been coming back on this, but if not, the question I have is, what best practices have you seen for starting to prepare the next generation for indeed coming into the business, whether they're 10 years old or 27 years old? Any best practices that you'd like to share about when should we start grooming the next gen for coming into the company?
So I have a very strong belief about this one because
Awesome.
of
I
what
had a
I've
hunch you
seen.
might.
Because of what I've seen with many families that I've interacted with, and it's the younger you start, the better. And
Yeah.
especially at a very young age, the way that you start to involve the next generation is by fun things, not mandatory things. So I know a large family here in Louisville, Kentucky, and one of the things that they do is they have ice cream socials around the business. So if you're in the ages between 5 and 10-year-old, then you have ice cream and you learn about what the business does and you learn all of these things. And then when you mature and you go to the next stage that is between like 11 and 15, then you get a tour of the business and you get to see kind of what it does. And then you move on, and then now you get to go to, financial meetings and learn about what the meeting does. And then you get to, if you want to have an internship, then you go and do an internship inside of the family business. And so this way, each time then you're learning something and you're making it fun, because I learned about something this weekend, and I thought it was very interesting. The way that they framed it is that you cannot be an owner or work in a company where you do not feel like you know it.
Yeah.
And so for next generations to fall in love the same way that the previous generations have fallen in love with a business, is that they need to know that business. And so create experiences that allow them to know that business from very early on and know the good things about the business. Obviously, you're also going to have to expose them to the bad things, but many only expose kind of the next generation to bad things of the business.
If I can add to that, Isa and Ed, when we had the high schoolers here this summer for the camp, and we had them in their own room separate from the parents, and we did some confidential peer networking with them. I mean, their feedback and their issues are so similar to the older next gens and the now gens. And they talked about, that it's a lot of responsibility to think about whether or not they want to go in. And they talked about appreciating they weren't the only ones in the room, because they can't talk to their friends who understand this, who aren't in family business. But they said that they would like help, that they would like to stay connected with us at the university, particularly to stay with the college students that were in the room with them on these projects. But they wanted to know what we could do to help them think through their decision about, do they want to go in the business or not, possibly, like what opportunities do they have, and how to have a conversation with their parents about any of it. So I think that opens the doors. How do you provide those opportunities for these youngsters so that you're communicating, earlier on than we might think about, going back to Isa's point of all the different age levels.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay, I would like to add one more thing, because I see this often, and I saw it like with my family. My family had 2 businesses, and we have 0 businesses now. But one of the things that I saw is that a lot of times my family would come and complain about the business. Oh, this business, horrible, blah, blah, blah. I had to deal with X, Y, Z, and whatever. Yeah. And this is what we tended to hear a lot of the time. And then later on, it's like, so do you want to be part of this business?
Yeah. Try to make it attractive to them, because if they see that it's just a very bothersome and tough on the now gen, why would the next gen want to get involved, right?
Yeah. And like anything that you do in life, it has good and bad things. But if you only highlight the bad things, there's no way that you're going to fall in love with a business that only has bad things.
Right. Exactly. So I'll finish with one more question before we wrap up. And it's always one of my favorite questions. I've been in situations at the hospital where a loved one is sick, and I ask the doctor a question, and I'm going to ask you the same question. And that is, what would you do in this situation? And I'm going to just propose a scenario. Let's say that Isa and Carol, your sisters, running your family business, whether you're second gen or founders, or it's irrelevant in this situation. You've got a 22-year-old who's just coming out of college. Maybe you're like a $20-25 million moderately technical family business. In that scenario, what would you do? Because I think that paints a brush for many of the people who are watching today.
So I'll start.
Okay.
I would have them work inside of the business.
Okay.
And I would not mandate them, but highly encourage them, because I think it's a great opportunity. And one of the things that I would do is I would rotate them throughout the whole organization so that they can learn a little bit about each of the things.
Yeah.
And maybe after that, then I can ask whether this is something that they would like to do for the foreseeable future. And then kind of complementary to that, I would also have them join different organizations outside of the family so that they can complement that knowledge, so that they can get kind of the best of both worlds.
I like
So the best of the internal processes, and also kind of knowledge from outside, connections from outside, mentoring from outside, because I think that way, I think I could develop the best next generation and really equip the next generation to make the decision of whether this is what they want to do, and is this what so that they can stay inside of the business. And if not, then you already understand, and then as an owner, then I would know, okay, then what is the type of plan that I need to have, so that kind of either I'm going to keep it in the family and this is what I'm going to do, or I can have an alternative plan at that point.
Excellent. Carol, how would you add to that? That's great. Thanks, Isa.
Yeah, good. So my niece and nephew will be in the business. I'm excited.
There you
We're
go.
sisters,
Right.
yeah. So
there you go.
Ed, yeah, I think you know this, Ed, that our daughter's actually in the business that my brother and his wife started and my husband joined. That she's now 31, and looking back, she was in college and they had a need for help, so she had already done an internship at an international company that was very interested in her going there. She started working part-time at the family business, and she, as Isa said, she just fell in love with it. They taught her everything. They treated her well. And she decided to stay there on her own. So it's a little bit of a different path, but what I see there, and I'm envious because I'm not working there, is the time and relationship she has with my husband, her coworker, and my brother and his wife, and many others, family like, right? That's when you think about trade-offs, and I go back to where I started with Blake Tirana, like these decisions we talk to families about are so monumental. And the idea of going to a place of work where you love, and there's a lot of opportunities, and you can be with family members that you love. I mean, I don't think it gets any better than that. So if it can all come together nicely, which it has for her so far, it's been fantastic. So
no, I love
thank
that.
you.
I think what I'm hearing, and I've seen a lot, is to your point, stay in the family business, get some outside experience, maybe in a community organization, a nonprofit, other civic organizations where you can have leadership and growth opportunities. So this is great. This content today has just been so valuable. I know
Thank
this
you.
is a question, as I mentioned at the beginning, that so many family businesses struggle with. Should they require it? Should they encourage it? Should they not? Obviously, Isa and Carol, you did a great job today of sharing, I think, the pros and cons both ways. Ultimately, the decision rests on the family's shoulders. One of the reasons why the First Bank Center for Family-Owned Businesses exists is because we're not here to tell you that this is how we've done it, do it our way, but we're here to find experts like Carol, like Isa, like many others who can be a resource to you. So Carol, Isa, again, thank you so much. Isa, thanks for battling through. I know you've been traveling a lot, and so we appreciate you battling through a little bit of the coughing attacks. Hopefully Brian and editing will have a fun time getting most of that out. And just really appreciate the two of you so much. So thanks again for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, as we wrap, again, our webinar coming up next month will be Dennis Jaffe, who wrote this book, Borrowed from Your Grandchildren, The Evolution of 100-Year Family Enterprises. And Dennis will be talking to us about his research behind the book and just best practices of family businesses that have been around doing this for many, many generations. And along those lines, in May, we will have Pierre Dupont as our presenter. And Pierre is part of the famous DuPont family, the Wawa grocery family, and others. And Pierre and our chairman, Michael Dierberg, will be sitting down together to discuss family legacy, not just family business legacy, but family legacy. And then as we move forward towards the fall, we will have Josh Barron with us. Josh has contributed to the Family Business Handbook, a Harvard business book that many of you have. And if you don't, you should contact us and we'll get it to you. The reason for all of that is Dennis and Pierre and Josh, among others, will be presenting at our Family Business Symposium in Santa Barbara, California in October. So for more information about that, you can reach out to us at first.bank/family business. And for any of the other research and workshops and podcasts and seminars that we do, you can access those there as well. So just want to thank you again on behalf of the entire First Bank team. We know you have a lot of choices with what you can do with your time. The fact that you're taking the time to log into these webinars means that you're very serious about the success of your family business. And we just encourage you to continue to look for ways to make your family business run more smoothly and operate more effectively. And if we can be of assistance to you beyond this content, please reach out to us. So thanks again and have a wonderful day. We'll see you next month.